Imagine for a moment that every choice you've ever made, every friendship, every love, every risk, every retreat was not entirely your own, but quietly guided by a force older than your name, older than your culture, older even than human memory itself, a force you cannot see, yet one that sees you completely. There is a force moving through every life, ancient beyond calculation, older than the first human words and the first human fears. It is a current running beneath the visible stream of our days, unnoticed yet constant, guiding without announcing its presence. Most people pass their years without ever recognizing it directly, though they have felt its pull in moments that seem inexplicable. It is there when a choice feels inevitable, when an attraction or aversion rises unbidden, when a path appears before us and we take it without hesitation, as if some part of us had been waiting for it all along. This force is not loud, for loudness belongs to the surface world of reason and willpower. Instead, it whispers from the depths, carrying the authority of something that has existed since the earliest forms of life learned to move toward what nourished them and away from what threatened them. In the modern world, we like to believe that our decisions are shaped by careful thinking, by lists of pros and cons, by the clarity of rational planning. Yet, beneath that polished surface of logic, there is a more primal architect at work. It speaks in urges, in subtle shifts of emotion, in flashes of recognition that bypass the intellect entirely. This ancient force does not care for the linear arguments of the mind, because it was here long before the human brain evolved the capacity for such reasoning. It belongs to the deep strata of existence, where instinct, memory, and inherited experience blend into a single flowing presence. In those depths, time is not counted in years, but in the endless repetitions of patterns that life has always followed. When we first encounter its influence, it often feels as though it comes from outside ourselves, as if fate or chance has intervened. A sudden encounter changes the course of our life. A decision that seemed irrational becomes the most natural step we could have taken. We feel this force shaping the direction of our relationships, our work, even our dreams. Though we cannot name it in the moment, later we may try to justify it in logical terms, to wrap it in the tidy language of cause and effect. But that is only the mind trying to claim ownership of something it never truly controlled. What makes this force so compelling is that it carries within it the memory of countless generations. It is not merely personal, it is collective. Within its quiet guidance lies the knowledge of survival, the echoes of choices made and remade by those who came before us. It knows in some wordless way what has kept life moving forward through the rise and fall of ages. Because of this, it does not always align with our immediate comfort or our conscious desires. Sometimes it leads us into challenges, into discomfort, into the confrontation of fears we would rather avoid, because it understands that growth comes not from stillness but from movement. It is difficult to resist. For resisting it often feels like turning against a truth we cannot see, but can sense with absolute certainty. We may delay, we may doubt, we may try to outthink it, but the more we struggle, the more its presence seems to surround us, as if reminding us that there is something greater than our individual will at play. This is not a tyrant's command, but an ancient invitation, urging us to step into the unfolding of a pattern far older than our own brief existence. In this way, it becomes the unseen companion to every choice we make, the silent sculptor of our destinies, the breath in the shadows of our lives that moves us forward. Even when we believe we are standing still, it operates in a realm untouched by the structures of language or the tidy scaffolding of reason. Long before words existed to describe the world, this force shaped how life responded to it. It does not require sentences to communicate, for its messages are carried through sensations, impulses, and the subtle stirrings of emotion. A glance, a sound, a shift in the air, these are enough for it to speak to us, though it never uses speech. Its presence can be felt in a sudden tightening of the chest when danger is near, in the inexplicable calm when safety surrounds us, in the unspoken certainty that we are in the right place at the right time. It moves in symbols and impressions, a language as old as existence itself, woven into the very structure of our being. Reason came late in the human story, an invention of a mind eager to organize and explain, to measure and compare. But this deeper force has no need for such measuring sticks. It does not deliberate or debate, it responds. It has no interest in linear cause and effect, because it understands reality in a different way, through patterns, through rhythms, through an intuition that knows without needing to prove. This is why it so often defies explanation. When we try to fit it into the rigid frameworks of conscious thought, the mind can analyze, dissect, and classify. But what moves in these depths slips through those nets as water slips through the fingers. Its logic, if it can be called that, is the logic of dreams. In dreams, we do not ask whether the world makes sense. We simply live within it, accepting that a doorway can open onto a vast ocean or that a stranger can feel like an old friend. The deeper mind operates much the same way. It is not concerned with whether something is reasonable. It is concerned with whether something resonates with the ancient patterns buried in the collective memory of life. This is why we sometimes feel an attraction or aversion that we cannot account for, a pull towards something that seems to bypass thought entirely. It is not irrational, it is pre-rational, older and in many ways wiser than the conscious intellect. In daily life, this manifests in countless small ways. We might turn down a street without knowing why, only to avoid an unseen danger. We might hesitate before signing an agreement that seemed perfect on paper, only to later learn of the trouble it would have brought. We might choose one person over another, guided not by a list of qualities, but by a feeling that cannot be explained. These moments are not accidents. They are the work of the silent force that guides from below, drawing on layers of perception the conscious mind cannot reach. The difficulty is that modern life has trained us to distrust what cannot be reasoned out step by step. We are taught to value proof over intuition, to seek evidence before action, to view anything that cannot be measured as unreliable. Yet in doing so, we often sever our connection to the very source of wisdom that kept humanity alive through millennia before the first word was ever spoken. Reason is a valuable tool, but it is not the only one. Beneath it lies a reservoir of understanding that is older, deeper, and less concerned with the tidy rules of logic. To ignore it is to cut ourselves off from the root system that feeds the tree of consciousness. And though it remains silent to the ear, it speaks with a clarity the heart cannot misunderstand, a clarity that neither argument nor language can replace. It rises from a depth that does not belong to any single individual, a place that holds the accumulated experiences of countless lives. This is the collective unconscious, the invisible bedrock of human existence, carrying within it the memory of all that humanity has endured, created, feared, and loved. Unlike the personal unconscious, which stores forgotten moments of one's own life, the collective unconscious is shared by all, a vast and timeless reservoir of archetypes and symbols that shape the way we think, feel, and act. It does not matter where a person is born, what language they speak, or what age they live in. This deeper layer of the mind is the same for everyone. It holds the instincts that ensured survival long before written history, and the symbolic patterns that have guided civilizations through both creation and collapse. From this hidden storehouse emerge the forms that feel strangely familiar, even when encountered for the first time. A story told in one corner of the world can be instantly understood in another because its themes echo these ancient patterns. The image of the wise guide, the threatening shadow, the nurturing figure, the perilous journey, these are not inventions of any single culture, but expressions of something universal. They are fragments of the shared human psyche, rising into dreams, myths, and art as naturally as a spring feeds a river. We think we are inventing these symbols when in truth we are rediscovering them, drawing them up from the depths where they have always existed. Because it belongs to no one and to everyone, the collective unconscious shapes behavior in ways that feel instinctive yet mysterious. It is the reason why people who have never met can respond similarly to the same symbol or image. It explains why certain narratives, repeated across centuries, never lose their power to move us. A figure sacrificing themselves for the good of others, a hero confronting the monster within, a wanderer seeking the lost home. Such images stir something deep inside because they are not merely stories, but reflections of psychic truths embedded in the shared foundation of humanity. This deep layer of mind does not speak to us directly in logical sentences. Instead, it works through emotional resonance, dream imagery, and instinctive reactions. It might be felt as an unexplainable comfort in the presence of a stranger whose face recalls something ancient in our memory, or as a sudden fear triggered by a situation that poses no obvious threat. These reactions bypass reason because they are not rooted in personal experience, but in the inherited wisdom and warnings of those who lived before us. The collective unconscious remembers dangers long past and victories hard won, and it whispers these lessons to us in a language older than thought. Modern life often dismisses this inheritance, focusing on the visible and the measurable. No matter how much we ignore it, the collective unconscious remains active beneath the surface, shaping our dreams, inclinations, and perceptions. It is why, in moments of crisis, people often revert to symbolic thinking, turning to rituals, myths, and shared narrative for guidance and meaning. It is why art and religion, though endlessly varied, share certain recurring forms and figures. It is the invisible web connecting each individual to the whole of humanity, reminding us that we are not isolated minds adrift in a meaningless universe, but participants in an ancient story still unfolding through us. And while the conscious self may believe it acts alone, it is often the collective unconscious that provides the map, the compass, and the quiet but unshakable direction that shapes the journey. It emerges into our lives through the timeless figures and stories that humanity has carried across centuries, the archetypes that repeat themselves in myths, legends, and personal dreams. These archetypes are not mere creations of imagination, but living structures within the psyche, ancient patterns that shape perception and behavior without our conscious awareness. They are the forms through which the deep mind expresses itself, allowing the inexpressible to take shape in symbols and characters. Across cultures, the names and faces of these figures change, yet their essence remains the same, as if the human soul speaks a universal language beneath the differences of geography and history. The nurturer appears again and again in the figure of the mother goddess, the healer, the caretaker who restores life when it falters. The wanderer emerges as the restless seeker, drawn to roads unexplored, bearing the promise of transformation and the danger of the unknown. The shadow takes form as the dark twin, the enemy or the monster, representing the parts of ourselves we would rather not see. These and countless other archetypes live in the collective unconscious, surfacing whenever the conditions of life call them forth. They are the invisible actors in the drama of human existence, taking on roles in our relationships, our ambitions, and our struggles. When these archetypes are activated, they often bypass the rational mind entirely. One might feel an immediate sense of trust towards someone embodying the qualities of the wise guide, or a sudden resistance towards someone who mirrors the traits of the trickster. These reactions feel personal, yet they arise from something much deeper than personal history. They are the psyche's recognition of a pattern that has been repeated countless times before, in stories told around fires, in dreams that shape decisions, in rituals meant to honor and balance the forces they represent. Archetypes are powerful because they do not simply live in the mind, they live in the emotions, in the body's responses, in the quiet shaping of thought. They give form to the invisible, making the currents of the unconscious visible enough for the conscious mind to respond to them. In art, literature, and religion, these figures allow us to engage with the forces of the psyche in a way that feels tangible. A hero's journey in an ancient epic is not merely entertainment. It is a mirror of the journey each person must undertake to confront their fears, integrate their shadow, and find wholeness. Though we may think ourselves far removed from the myths of the past, archetypes continue to guide the stories we tell and the choices we make. They appear in modern films, in the characters of novels, in the symbols of advertising, in the roles people unconsciously play in everyday life. They speak to us because they carry truths that are not bound to one era. The mentor who prepares the hero, the deceiver who forces growth through disruption, the figure of death who demands transformation. These are not inventions of culture so much as they are revelations of the inner architecture of the human spirit. In dreams, archetypes often arrive with an immediacy that leaves a lasting impression. A person might wake with the image of a stranger whose face they have never seen but whose presence feels profoundly significant. That figure might be the embodiment of a guide, a shadow, or an anima figure, arising not from the day's events but from the deeper layers of the psyche. Such encounters remind us that archetypes are not distant abstractions. They are active participants in the unfolding of our inner and outer lives, shaping our relationships, our sense of purpose, and even the way we understand ourselves. They are the enduring patterns through which the hidden instinct finds its voice and directs the course of our journey. There is a peculiar pull that draws us toward what feels both known and unknown at the same time, a sensation of familiarity wrapped in mystery. It is as if somewhere deep within, a part of us recognizes the shape of an experience before we can consciously explain why. This pull is one of the most subtle yet compelling ways the hidden instinct operates. It whispers through moments when we encounter a place for the first time and feel we have been there before, or when we meet a person whose presence feels like the echo of a memory we cannot place. These experiences do not belong to the realm of logic, for the rational mind searches for a cause and finds none. Instead, they arise from the deep patterns of the psyche, from the instinct's connection to the collective memory of humanity. This attraction to the familiar yet mysterious is not accidental. The psyche is drawn to patterns it has encountered before because they carry with them the sense of safety and meaning. At the same time, it is compelled toward what is slightly beyond its current understanding, for growth lies in that borderland between the known and the unknown. The familiar provides a foundation, a sense of grounding, while the mysterious offers the promise of transformation. Together they create a tension that pulls us forward, urging us into experiences that feel destined even if they defy explanation. Often this manifests in relationships where we may be inexplicably drawn to certain people who embody qualities that resonate deeply with our inner patterns. They may awaken emotions or memories we did not know we carried. Sometimes this resonance is comforting, offering the warmth of recognition. Other times it is unsettling, forcing us to confront aspects of ourselves we have ignored. In both cases, the bond is not formed purely in the conscious mind, it is forged in the shared symbolic language of the unconscious. Where recognition is not bound by time or personal history, the same pull operates in our attraction to places, objects, and even ideas. A certain landscape might stir emotions that feel ancient, as though our ancestors once walked those same paths. A particular work of art might move us beyond words, speaking directly to the deep mind through shape, color, and form. These reactions reveal that we are not simply engaging with the surface of reality, we are responding to layers of meaning that connect us to the vast human story. The mysterious element ensures that we cannot fully possess or define the experience, keeping us engaged and open to what it might reveal over time. There is a paradox in this dynamic. Too much familiarity can lead to stagnation, as the psyche becomes trapped in the repetition of what it already knows. Too much mystery can overwhelm, leaving us adrift without any point of reference. The hidden instinct navigates this balance, drawing us into situations that contain just enough recognition to feel safe and just enough novelty to challenge us. This balance is essential for psychological development, for it is in these threshold spaces, where the known meets the unknown, that transformation takes place. Such experiences often linger in memory, not because of what happened on the surface, but because of the way they stirred something deep inside. They leave behind a sense of significance, a quiet conviction that the moment mattered in ways we cannot yet articulate. This is the mark of the hidden instinct at work, guiding us toward encounters that feed both the stability of our roots and the expansion of our branches. It is the silent architect behind many of our most meaningful choices, weaving together recognition and mystery into the path we are destined to walk. It moves us toward connection in ways we rarely see until we look back. This hidden instinct is a quiet architect of the bonds we form, urging us toward people, groups, and purposes that extend beyond our isolated selves. At its core, it understands that survival, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, has always depended on the strength of our relationships, long before the rise of modern society. This instinct kept early humans together in tribes, teaching them to protect one another, share resources, and pass down knowledge. That ancient memory still lives within us, shaping the way we reach out, commit, and sometimes sacrifice for those we hold dear. Its influence is not limited to companionship. It draws us into roles and responsibilities that tie us to a larger whole. The pull to care for a child, to stand beside a friend in hardship, to contribute to the well-being of a community. These are not just moral choices, but instinctive actions rooted in the same deep patterns. They echo the age-old truth that we are not complete on our own. In the quiet spaces of the mind, this force whispers of belonging, reminding us that our lives gain meaning in the weaving together of our stories with others. At times, this instinct works gently, fostering bonds through shared joy and mutual trust. A smile across a room, a moment of silent understanding, a gesture of kindness. These seem small, yet they carry the weight of centuries of human connection. At other times, it exerts itself in more urgent ways, driving us to defend and protect. In moments of danger or loss, it can override self-interest, compelling acts of courage that might seem irrational to the conscious mind, but make perfect sense to the deeper psyche. In these moments, we are not just acting for ourselves, we are acting for something larger, something the hidden instinct holds sacred. It also shapes our attraction to causes greater than personal gain. Many people feel an unexplainable pull toward service, justice, or the preservation of traditions and values. This is the instinct at work on a collective scale, guiding individuals to become part of movements that protect and nurture the group as a whole. Such commitments often require sacrifice of time, comfort, or even safety, but the instinct is as necessary for the survival and flourishing of the shared life. There is a paradox here. For the same force that binds us together can also lead to entanglement and loss of self. The desire to protect and belong can grow so strong that it traps us in unhealthy attachments or causes us to neglect our own needs. In its shadow form, this instinct may drive people to cling too tightly, to sacrifice too much, or to remain in harmful situations out of fear of losing connection. This is why awareness matters. To live fully, we must learn to recognize when the instinct is guiding us toward growth and when it is pulling us into patterns that no longer serve our well-being. Yet even with this potential for imbalance, the instinct's fundamental role is to remind us that life is richer when shared. It keeps us tethered to the pulse of human experience, ensuring that our lives do not shrink into the narrow circle of the self. It understands that the bonds we form are both shelter and mirror, places where we are protected and places where we see ourselves more clearly. Through every handshake, embrace, or act of solidarity, it quietly reaffirms that our deepest strength lies not in separation, but in the connections that weave us into the fabric of something enduring. It exists in a realm the waking mind rarely visits, a dim space between dream and daylight where thought loosens its grip and images rise without being summoned. Here the hidden instinct moves freely, unbound by the rigid laws of reason. In this twilight of awareness, the conscious mind cannot fully dictate the course of action, for another, older intelligence is at work. It shapes our responses in ways we cannot always explain, leaving us to wonder why we chose one path over another, why certain people draw us near, or why we hesitate when there is no clear obstacle in sight. This is the territory where logic cannot reach, where symbols and feelings guide the way. In moments of decision, it might appear as a sudden certainty that feels truer than any calculated plan. In moments of danger, it can trigger a shift in awareness so quick that the mind struggles to keep pace. These instincts do not announce themselves with elaborate arguments. They come as flashes, gut reactions, subtle nudges that bypass the slow machinery of conscious thought. They are not bound by the linear progression of time, but seem to operate all at once, weighing possibilities and outcomes in ways we cannot measure. Often these signals are drowned out by the noise of modern life, the constant demands for productivity, the ceaseless flow of information, and the habit of overthinking can push this quieter form of knowing into the background, yet it never disappears entirely. In still moments just before sleep, in the silence after waking, or while absorbed in a repetitive task, it rises again, offering impressions and insights that feel as though they have come from somewhere beyond the ordinary mind. These are the times when people say they just knew, even if they cannot explain how. Operating in this half-lit space, the instinct speaks through the body as much as through thought. A tightening in the stomach, a change in breathing, a sudden heaviness or lightness. These sensations often carry messages from the unconscious before the conscious mind has caught up. They are the language of the deeper self, one that evolved long before words were spoken. In the wild, such signals meant the difference between life and death. Today, they can still mean the difference between choices that lead us toward growth and those that lead us into harm. Because it works outside of conscious control. This instinct can feel both mysterious and unsettling. We may resist trusting it, fearing it will lead us astray. Yet when ignored, it often finds other ways to make itself known through recurring dreams, restless moods, or an unshakable sense that something is wrong. In such cases, it is less an enemy than a messenger trying to bring attention to truths the surface mind has overlooked. To navigate life with awareness, we must learn to honor this twilight territory. That does not mean abandoning reason, but rather creating space for this deeper form of perception to speak. It means listening to the quiet moments between thoughts, allowing symbols and impressions to emerge without rushing to translate them into immediate action. It means recognizing that much of what shapes our lives does not arrive in the clear light of conscious planning, but in these shaded spaces where the boundaries between waking and dreaming blur. In learning to move within this space, we align ourselves with a rhythm that is both ancient and intimate, a way of knowing that has been guiding life long before the mind learned to speak. It carries within it the capacity to build the most meaningful parts of life, and with equal force, to undo them. This hidden instinct is not inherently good or bad. It is a raw power that can shape our reality in both directions. When it flows in harmony with awareness, it can create bonds, nurture growth, and lead us toward a sense of wholeness. It becomes the foundation upon which trust, community, and deep personal fulfillment are built. In such moments, it feels as though it is guiding us along a path that was meant for us, aligning inner need with outer circumstance. We meet people who bring out our best qualities, choose opportunities that expand our horizons, and make decisions that weave our lives into a tapestry rich with meaning. Its influence feels like a current carrying us forward, not through force, but through a deep resonance with what feels right. Yet this same instinct, when left unchecked or allowed to dominate without balance, can become destructive. The very force that draws us toward connection can also lead us into entanglements that sap our strength. It can create attachments rooted not in growth, but in fear of loss, drawing us into cycles of dependency or conflict. It may pull us towards situations that echo unresolved patterns from the past, compelling us to repeat them even when they cause harm. In these moments, what once felt like destiny can harden into fate, a sense of being trapped in a path we did not consciously choose. The instinct does not distinguish between what serves us and what undermines us. It only seeks to fulfill its underlying patterns. Without self-awareness, we can mistake its pull for the voice of truth, following it into situations that limit rather than expand our potential. This is why people sometimes find themselves inexplicably drawn to relationships or choices that, in hindsight, seem to contradict their own well-being. The attraction was real, but it was not necessarily aligned with the conscious self's deepest values or needs. When the instinct turns toward creation, it can inspire acts of profound courage and generosity. It can lead someone to risk their safety for another, to commit years to building something that benefits not only themselves but those around them, to cultivate an inner resilience that turns adversity into wisdom. These moments are not the result of calculated planning. They are born from a deeper force that knows how to mobilize the whole of a person toward a single aim. Such acts leave behind a legacy, whether seen by many or known only to a few, because they spring from the enduring structures of the psyche. When it turns toward destruction, it can be equally powerful. It can feed obsessions, blind us to warning signs, and compel actions that dismantle what we have worked hard to build. It can erode trust, isolate us from others, and deepen divisions within ourselves. Often, the damage occurs not in one sudden act, but in small, repeated choices that accumulate over time, each one nudged along by an unexamined impulse. By the time the conscious mind recognizes the pattern, the cost may already be high. The challenge lies in developing a relationship with this instinct that honors its strength without surrendering control to it entirely. This means learning to pause, to step back from its pull long enough to ask whether it is guiding us toward growth or repetition. It means acknowledging that its power can be life-giving when integrated and life-draining when ignored or blindly obeyed. Like a river, it can nourish the land or flood it. The difference lies in whether we have built the channels that allow it to flow in ways that sustain rather than destroy. To live with this force is to live with the knowledge that what gives life its richest meaning can also, if unguarded, unravel it from within. To see the true shape of this force, one must be willing to journey inward, beyond the surface stories we tell ourselves, into the layered depths of the psyche where both light and shadow dwell. This is not a simple descent. The conscious mind resists, preferring the safety of what is familiar, clinging to the comfort of certainty. Yet the hidden instinct can only be understood when we step into the places within us that are unlit, where our fears, unacknowledged desires, and forgotten wounds reside. These inner landscapes are not empty. They are inhabited by aspects of ourselves we have ignored or denied, each waiting to be recognized. The light within us is easy to embrace. It holds our strengths, our compassion, our capacity for love and creation. These qualities align with the image we want to present to the world. But the shadow is harder to face. It contains traits we have learned to reject: anger, envy, vulnerability, selfishness, impulses that do not fit the version of ourselves we wish to believe in. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the part of us that has been banished from consciousness. Yet as long as it remains unseen, it influences our choices in ways we do not understand, often projecting itself onto others and shaping our reactions to them. Self-exploration means stepping into this hidden territory without judgment. It is the work of listening to what the shadow has to say, of seeing how it mirrors parts of ourselves we have refused to acknowledge. In this process, the instinct becomes a guide rather than a master. It reveals the deeper motives behind our attractions and aversions, the patterns that repeat in our relationships, the emotions that rise in moments of conflict or vulnerability. By understanding these patterns, we loosen their unconscious hold and begin to act with greater clarity. This journey inward also requires patience. The psyche does not reveal its depths all at once. Insights often come in fragments: an image from a dream, a memory triggered unexpectedly, a sudden realization in the middle of an ordinary day. These moments when honored, become stepping stones deeper into the self. The work is not to force answers, but to remain present with the questions, to allow the unconscious to speak in its own time and language. Confronting the shadow is not comfortable. It may bring shame, resistance, or the temptation to turn back, yet every step into that darkness holds the possibility of integration. To integrate the shadow is not to erase it, but to reclaim it as part of the whole self. In doing so, we reclaim the energy it holds, energy that can be transformed into creativity, resilience, and authentic strength. The light becomes brighter when it is not constantly at war with the dark, when both are recognized as necessary to the completeness of the self. The hidden instinct thrives in the unconscious, feeding on what remains unseen, but when we meet it face to face, it changes. It becomes less a hidden master and more a powerful ally, one that can move in harmony with our conscious values. This transformation begins not with control, but with understanding, not with suppression, but with acceptance. The journey inward is therefore not an escape from life, but a preparation for living it more fully, with a mind and heart that no longer need to divide themselves against their own truth. The hidden instinct is not an enemy to be vanquished, nor a wild force to be chained away in the vaults of the unconscious. It is a part of the self, born from the same deep roots that give rise to our dreams, our symbols, and our capacity for meaning. To treat it as something to be suppressed is to deny the wholeness of who we are. Suppression only drives it deeper into the shadows, where it continues to act without our consent, finding ways to express itself through subtle urges, unexpected emotions, and seemingly irrational choices. The task is not to silence it, but to bring it into the light of consciousness, where it can be acknowledged, understood, and woven into the fabric of our deliberate actions. Integration begins with recognition. We must see the instinct for what it is, without the distortions of fear or judgment. This requires honesty and openness to the possibility that our motives are more complex than we imagine, that the paths we follow are influenced by forces we have not fully named. In naming them, we do not strip them of their power, rather we place ourselves in a position to engage with them. The instinct becomes a dialogue partner instead of a silent commander, a voice among many within the inner chorus of the self. To integrate is also to listen. The instinct, like a dream, speaks in symbols and feelings more than in direct statements. Its language is the pull towards certain people, the unexplained comfort in certain places, the sudden resistance to paths that seem logical on the surface. Instead of dismissing these signals as irrational, we begin to explore them. We ask why they arise, what memories or archetypes they awaken, and what part of the psyche they speak for. In doing so, we allow the conscious and unconscious to converse, each informing the other. This is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process. The psyche is alive, shifting as we grow, and the instinct will change its form as our life circumstances and inner landscapes change. At times, it will draw us toward challenges that refine us. At other times, it will seek comfort or safety. By staying aware, we can distinguish between moments when it serves our growth and moments when it merely echoes old fears or outdated patterns. This discernment gives us the ability to choose, not in defiance of the instinct, but in collaboration with it. Integration also means accepting that the instinct holds both light and shadow. It can inspire acts of profound care, loyalty, and creativity, just as it can tempt us toward possessiveness, dependency, or self-sabotage. To integrate it is to accept the full range of its potential, knowing that awareness is what transforms its energy from something reactive into something constructive. The instinct's intensity becomes a source of vitality rather than a source of confusion. When the hidden instinct is brought into alignment with the conscious will, we move through life with greater coherence. Our choices no longer feel like battles between conflicting parts of ourselves. Instead, there is a sense of inner agreement, a quiet strength that comes from knowing that even the most ancient parts of us are not at odds with the life we are building. This harmony does not mean the absence of struggle. It means that our struggles are guided by a clearer sense of purpose, one that is not merely imposed from the outside, but arises from the deepest truths within us. In the end, the instinct we do not name still shapes the life we live. But when we dare to meet it face to face, to understand its whispers and its warnings, we no longer move blindly. We move with the full power of our inner depths, guided not by compulsion, but by conscious choice.